this lesson, we are going to talk about achieving our peak performance. Now, what is that? Well, we all know what it is like in the sports world, right? Where you can see that people practice all day and they become the best in their sport and they go on to compete and they do the best they can. Most of us are not in the sports world. That's not how we earn our money, and that's not how we want to earn our money. And so what that means for us is finding what is the best environment and the best factors out there for us to perform our best. So for an example, I had an awesome day at work a few weeks ago. And it's sad that I'm saying a few weeks ago. I've had some good days in between as well. But I looked back as I was driving home from work that day. I'm like, why was this day so good? And I realized there were a couple of things. First of all, there weren't as many people in the office, and so there are fewer people that interrupted my chain of work. And in my work environment, we've been moved out of offices into cubes so that we'll be more collaborative. And so what that does is that the number of interruptions and the interactions throughout the day go up. So you have a really hard time finding any more than 10 to 15 minutes to focus before your next interruption. What I found too is that I didn't have a lot of meetings that day. I think I had 2 meetings, maybe one in the morning and one in the afternoon. So what did that mean for me? I had time in between to perform the tasks I needed to perform. I had time in between to go manage the projects and follow up with people. That's part of my core responsibilities. And so I went home feeling accomplished because I had had that time to concentrate. I had had that alone time. But then when I did talk to people, I was anxious to talk to them and have a positive interaction because I had had that alone time to complete my work. And so I realized that those were important factors for me performing well that day. Now take that and compare it to a day, which this is no exaggeration. I sometimes have 6 or 7 meetings in a row, and I will be leading maybe 4 or 5 of them. So I have to be prepared with agendas. I have to follow up with different people. I need to make sure the right people are there, or I need to be listening and taking notes at the various meetings. And so what am I accomplishing? Well, I might be learning more about the particular activities that are being talked about in those meetings, but I don't have any time to go do anything with that information. And so when I get home, I feel like I didn't accomplish a lot. I feel all the energy is zapped out of me, and partially that's personality type, which we'll talk about in another lesson. And so in this particular case, I feel drained. I don't feel like I'm performing well. And then there's job dissatisfaction when that happens, right? And so these are very important things to remember, because what if, for example, I decided to become an entrepreneur that required me to meet with people in meeting after meeting every day? What would that do? That would be really bad, because all I would be doing is replicating what wore me out before. And so that's why when we did the lesson about looking at your past, and that's why taking this lesson and looking at our personal performance factors is extremely important. Because if you're truly wanting to include a new entrepreneurship activity in your life, or if you're truly wanting to leave a day job to go out on your own, you don't want to replicate those things that didn't bring you happiness before. Otherwise, you're going to be going through this same cycle again. And this is just not what we're shooting for. So in this lesson, we're going to share, I'll get off the camera and share a few tips, a few questions to ask yourself, and a few considerations to think about when you are thinking about your personal performance factors. Because I think a lot of us have figured, first of all, we figured some of them out, but there's other things we haven't figured out. And we might have to carry that little piece of paper in our wallet that I've talked about along the way to remember when an experience hits, to write that down so that we remember that we do not want to have that experience again, that we want to minimize what that factor is so that we can increase and be involved in those factors that improve our performance.